Merry Christmas. God Jul till dere alle. Today is the Food for the Faithful channel's Christmas message from me, Bill Reimer, your reluctant prophet. I'm not reluctant to tell you what I have to tell you today because we're going to have a little review of the origins of Christmas and its traditions. The origin of Christmas as a holiday. December the 25th is Christmas Day or Christmas. But for the first 300 years of Christianity, it wasn't so. When was Christmas first celebrated? In an old list of Roman bishops compiled in 354 AD. These words appear for AD 336. 25th December, Natus Christus in Bethlehem, Judea. December the 25th, Christ is born in Bethlehem, Judea. This day, December 25th, 336, is the first recorded celebration of Christmas. No one knows for sure on what day Christ was born. Dionysius Exiguus, a 6th century monk, was the first to date all of history from December the 25th, the year of our Lord, number 1. Other traditions gave dates as early as mid-November, as late as March. How did Christmas come to be celebrated on December the 25th? This is the key question. Cultures around the Mediterranean and across Europe observe feasts on or around December the 25th, marking the winter solstice, which indeed is today. The Jews had a festival of lights. Germans had a Yule festival. Celtic legends connected the solstice with Balder, the Scandinavian sun god who was struck down by a mistletoe arrow. At the pagan festival of Saturnalia, Roman feasted and gave gifts to the poor. Drinking was closely connected with these pagan festivals. At some point, a Christian bishop may have adopted the day to keep his people from indulging in the old pagan festival. You see, when Christianity was made the state religion of Rome, people weren't really converted. That's why priests became a separate order or class of Christian. And because they weren't actually Christians, they were still pagan by nature, the priests had to instruct them on how to be a Christian. Historian William J. Tiggy offered a different view, however. When a consensus arose in the church to celebrate Christ's conception on March the 25th, it was reasonable to celebrate his birth 9 months later. Origin of Christmas traditions. Many of the pagan customs became associated with Christmas. Christian stories replaced the heathen tales, but the practices hung on. Candles continued to be lit. Kissing under the mistletoe remained common in Scandinavian countries. But over the years, gift exchange became connected with the name of St. Nicholas, a real but legendary figure of 4th century Lycia, a province of Asia, actually Asia Minor. A charitable man, he threw gifts into homes. Around the 13th century, Christians added one of the most pleasant touches of all to Christmas celebration when they began to sing Christmas carols. No one is sure just when the Christmas tree came into the picture. It originated in Germany. The 8th century English missionary St. Boniface, apostle to Germany, is supposed to have held up the evergreen as a symbol of the everlasting Christ. By the end of the 16th century, Christmas trees were common in Germany. Some say Luther cut the first, took it home, and decked it with candles to represent the stars. When the German court came to England, the Christmas tree came with them. Puritans forbade Christmas, considering it too pagan. Governor Bradford actually threatened New Englanders with work, jail, or fines if they were caught observing Christmas. In 1843 in Victorian England, Charles Dickens published his novelette, A Christmas Carol. It became one of the most popular short works of fiction ever penned. Although the book is more of a work of sentiment than of Christianity, it captures something of the Christmas spirit. The tight-fisted grump Ebenezer Scrooge, who exclaimed humbug at the mention of Christmas, is contrasted with generous merrymakers such as his nephew Fred, and with the struggling poor, symbolized by Bob Cratchit and Tiny Tim. The book's appeal to good works and charitable contributions virtually defines Christmas in English-speaking lands. Whatever the ins and outs of Christmas, we are still unwrapping the gift of God's Son, and what an incentive to generosity and joy his gift is. And I include the bibliography below that section for my research. But what are the roots of our Christmas traditions, and why do they continue to be important? Before we had Christmas, we had Yule, which is the English spelling, Y-U-L-E, is the English spelling of the Norwegian Jul, J-U-L, which is a midwinter celebration of Odin the All-Father, riding his eight-legged horse, Sleipnir, leading a procession of the undead on a hunt for poor souls who couldn't find a hiding place, something much like Canadians today. The Wild Hunt of Odin is based on the Wild Hunt motif from folklore. In the Scandinavian tradition, the Wild Hunt is often associated with the god Odin. It consists of a terrifying procession that hurl across the sky during midwinter and abduct unfortunate people who have failed to find a hiding place. In the Norwegian material, figures other than Odin have been named as leaders of the hunt, including Lucy, sometimes identified as Adam's first wife, and Guro Risaruva, a supernatural female being with a mysterious male companion. The folklorist Christine N.F. Eike has argued that the motif might have its origins in European traditions, where young unmarried men wear masks and move in procession during Christmastide. The Wild Hunt and the danger of seeing the phantom army of Odin. The Wild Hunt was a popular folklore found in Scandinavian and Germanic myths, as well in later folklore in Britain and Northern European countries, which has changed, admittedly, over the centuries. The group of hunters were variously known as the Furious Host or Raging Host. The hunt usually took part during the winter, with a spectral host of horsemen riding through the stormy sky with their ghost-like hounds. The chilling sound of the hunting horn could be heard reverberating through the woods and meadows. In the Norse myths, the original leader of the hunt was the god Odin, known in Germanic myth as Woden, or in Anglo-Saxon as Wotan. Odin rode his eight-legged horse Sleipnir, and his company of hunters were the Valkyries and the dead warriors who resided with him in Valhalla. The hunt began on the winter nights, October 31st, and didn't end until May the 30th, May Eve, April 30th of the following year. These two nights were special because lights went out on all 9 worlds, and the spirits and goblins were free to roam on the earth's surface. However, the height of the wild ride fell on the night of Midwinter Festival, known as Yule, or December the 21st, this very evening. Traditionally, the shortest day of the year in Scandinavian Germany. That is to say, today, beware. Canada's wild Valkyrian ride into perdition is the next subtitle. If you have not found a place to hide from the undead who are leading the political procession, the aim of which is to drag us into hell, is echoed in every aspect of the wicked alliance between Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau, since Trudeau is a dead man walking, but worse, still passing laws that are ruinous. So let us review his litany of hellish corruption, and this list will only deal in part with the fallout of an administration where he has ensured that no one will be left anywhere to hide from the damage he has wreaked both socially and economically. Here's a short list written by Liberty heroine Tamara Lich on what the current government, with the support of the leader of the NDP and local law enforcement, is responsible for doing to Canadians. Colluded with the government, funded Canadian media to paint Canadians as crazy, unhinged, angry lunatics, called Canadians terrorists, racists, and misogynists, lied about foreign funding and donations, lied about the desecration of the Terry Fox statue, lied about truckers stealing food from homeless shelters, lied about truckers disrespecting our war memorial when in fact they were protecting it, lied about Russian interference, illegally spied on its own citizens, accused truckers of being rapists. When they were downtown, and I was there, crime went down and they were feeding the hungry. Lied about arson attempt of an apartment building. Lied about law enforcement advice to invoke Emergency Act. Lied about legal advice advising to invoke Emergency Act. Lied about violence. Unlawfully froze bank accounts. Stole fuel and food from the truckers. Threatened to apprehend children. Accused us of using children as human shields. Had our crowdfunding campaign frozen after contacting GFM and telling them we are domestic terrorists. Beat military veterans, physically beat them. Beat peaceful protesters with the butts of their rifles. Shot Canadians with rubber bullets and tear gas. Shot a reporter at point-blank range with a gas canister. Trampled a First Nations woman with heavy horses, then lied and laughed about it. Arrested peaceful Canadians, left them in cold paddy wagons for hours, dropping them off in the outskirts of Ottawa in the middle of a snowstorm. Joked about sending tanks to remove peaceful Canadians. Claimed honk honk was an acronym for you-know-what. Planted a nasty flag and sent government photographer out to snap a photo of it. This is when they sent one of their own with a swastika out among them, and then had one of their own photographers photograph it. Seized donations in the same manner they would from a drug cartel. Violently arrested a senior citizen who drove past and honked his car horn. Threatened to hunt down anyone involved. Unlawfully, unconstitutionally invoked emergency as determined by a judge. Then Tamara asks, what did I miss? All this in order to avoid a conversation with everyday tax-paying blue-collar Canadians. Not one of them has been fired. Not one of them held to account. That's the list drafted by Tamara Lich. Tamara Lich, Ms. Lich, was a key player in the Freedom Convoy protest, and she has shared her story on the world stage. Freedom Convoy organizer and fundraiser Tamara Lich spoke this week at the European Parliament in Strasbourg, France, to discuss the treatment of Canadians during the pandemic. She just recently received the 2024 Women Fighting for Freedom Award, presented to her by Madame Christine Anderson, MD-EP of the European Union and Fellow of the European of Sovereign Nations Group in Strasbourg. Where this leaves us. Most Canadians now want an early election as Trudeau's support drops in polls yet again, and I provide the link for this article. As the Liberal government grapples with political upheaval following the exit of Chrystia Freeland from the federal cabinet, a new Ipsos poll shows most Canadians now want an early election. That comes as support for Conservatives is surging, and support for the Liberals is at a near historic low this week, putting Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just 1 point above the record low support seen by former Liberal leader Michael Ignatieff in 2011. Ignatieff led the party to its worst defeat in history in 2011, which saw the Liberals reduced to a third-party status behind the NDP as official opposition and the Conservatives winning a majority government. Ipsos polling done exclusively for Global News and released this Friday past, shows over half of Canadians, 53%, believe opposition parties should defeat the government at the earliest opportunity and trigger an early election. Meanwhile, 46% believe opposition parties should work with the government on a case-by-case basis to avoid an early election. This is a near reversal of data received on Monday before Freeland's resignation, which shared responses gathered in early December of this year. That poll said 54% did not want an early election and 46% did. And of course it's hopped ahead, so let me get back to where I was. Forgive me. 46% did. The most popular vote share for Liberals has dropped 1% since last week and 6 points since September to 20%, tying them with the New Democrats. NDP support has dropped 1 point since last week but has risen 4% since September. The Bloc Québécois has maintained its support at 7%, while the Green Party is up 1% since last week. Trudeau cabinet shuffle had 8 new ministers sworn in. Missed the political turmoil in Ottawa? Here's how it happened, day by day. NDP will vote to topple Trudeau and propose a confidence vote, Singh says. But can he be believed? The Prime Minister's personal popularity has gone down 5% since the last Ipsos poll, with only 23% overall saying they think Trudeau deserves re-election and 77% saying they think it's time for a new party to take over. Since renewed calls for him to step down this week, 73% of respondents said Trudeau should step down, while 27% want him to continue as Prime Minister and lead the party into the election in 2025. Trudeau likens Freeland's departure to a family spat, while Poilievre calls the Grinch. There was a sharp drop in the percentage of respondents who thought Trudeau was best suited to deal with Donald Trump in trade negotiations. The poll said 14% believed Trudeau would do the best job representing Canada's interests with the new Trump administration, compared to 39% who said Poilievre would be best suited for that role. The gulf between perceptions of both leaders has only widened since the last Ipsos poll, when 22% said Trudeau was best suited for the role, compared to 34% for Poilievre. What led to Freeland's sudden resignation? Because Trudeau threw her under the bus. He increased her budget by over $20 billion and then wanted her, against her will, to present it. Ipsos finding. These are some of the findings of an Ipsos poll conducted between the 19th and 20th December on behalf of Global News. This survey was a sample of 1,001 Canadians aged 18 plus while it was interviewed online. Quotas in waiting were employed to ensure that the sample composition reflects that of the Canadian population according to census parameters. The precision of Ipsos poll online is measured using a credibility interval, in this case The poll is accurate to within point or minus 3.8 percentage points 19 times out of 20. Had all Canadians 18 plus been polled. On my conclusion of where we're at. What am I to state in the face of such a perverse corruption of parliamentary democracy, which has had but one goal? To continue abusing the Canadian people at a time when we need a calm, strong voice to counter Trump's threats to kill our economy with tariffs. We need an election now. And may the walking undead, who have been damned by their own behavior, suffer the full weight of their own wicked hubris. There is no place to hide from this Vulcarian ride, led by Udin, riding the eight-legged horse Schleipnir, right over all our rights, all our freedoms, all that meant what it is to be at Christmas. Many, many people are left at this time of year with insufficient means to celebrate this holiday properly. Whatever you think about Christmas, whatever you think about Yule, whatever you think about Udin as a wild ride, if ever there is a metaphor for the latter, Trudeau is it. I've had it. God bless you. Merry Christmas. Gu Yule. Till Delta Allah.